Hello and welcome back. This one once. So, we've just added effectively all of the quotes that we might have ever needed. That includes currency pairs, some commodities perhaps, stocks, cryptocurrencies if you're into trading those. So now it's time to see what we can do about handling all of the technical analysis that we need to take care of, obviously. So, if you open this chart window, your beautiful phone app, this is what you're going to probably see. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on over here, a lot of buttons, so let's go through each and one of them, so everything is as clear as it can be, and if you ever needed help, look, just send us a message in chat or send us an email or give us a call, we'll get you right through it. So, first and foremost, you get this kind of crosshair thing. So what this does is effectively real simple, it simply shows you whenever or wherever you put it on, what is the price of that particular point in time and what is the actual point in time in this one. So in my case, I'm looking at euro-dollar currency pairs, traded as a forward contract, obviously, and if I put it, for example, right below this beautiful red candle, after which the price went right up, you can see that in this particular point, the price was 1.17 repeated 4 times, and that particular red candle has opened because the actual date, which you can see below, always shows you the opening time of that candle. So that particular red candle opened at 2017 server time. So once again, just explore around. This tool is mostly useful when you're trying to set some pending orders and you need to understand just at which price point exactly do you want to put in the price. But once again, can be used in other circumstances for a lot of different stuff. So play around with it, see if you like it or not, and if you can find it some additional use perhaps. Now the second button over there is the F, which I guess would stand for a function. I guess the function of the chart, which you could say any indicator effectively is. This one effectively allows you to put a whole bunch of things to your chart. So starting from the actual stuff like moving average, for instance, drawn with a period of 10. Adding some additional ones, we can add, for example, the average direction movement index can be useful, but I personally don't use it that much. Perhaps something a bit more simple, intuitive, and a bit known would be a stochastic oscillator. You can configure the K, the D period, the slow-in, price field, method, get the main and the signal line, the usual ones. You can configure even the levels over here. So for example, if you've got some strategies that pays additional attention to where the stochastic is located, for example, how near it is to the middle level, so to the level 50, which would be over here, you can configure that just as fine over here. Click that plus button, and for some reason it doesn't work that way. Anyhow, most of the things are configurable over there, unless there's something not quite right going on, and once you're done, just say you're done, and you'll have it right away on your chart. So let's add some other things. For example, some people like Bollingers. Actually, they're quite useful. But we add Bollingers, let's get rid of the moving average, because we actually don't need it that much. Here, let's put that button, and let's click on that one. And here we have it. We've got our price jumping up and down as usual. We got the stochastic oscillator, and we've added the Bollinger Bands. Now, this is not really the setup I would ever use, mostly because it's really not intuitive. There's too much going on. By the way, one piece of advice I may give you, don't add more stuff to your chart just because you can. Because the things that you add in, any kind of indicators, any kind of additional price analysis, they should help you make faster, better decisions. If they slow you down, if all they serve to is to make you confused, even more than you currently are, I mean, the things are not good and you really don't need it. So in my particular case, I'm going to get rid of the Bollinger Bands, using the same bin icon over there, and I can leave the stochastic because, especially if you're trading on lower time frames, minute, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, in an oscillator like stochastic is quite crucial. So this particular case, yeah, this is what can be done. Now the next icon, really simple. Once again, this one is going to show you, once you click on it, all the different assets that you can jump between right away without effectively leaving the chart setup that you've actually covered over there. So if you were to add, for example, some additional indicators, let's say MACD, so now you have the charts, the stochastic and the MACD, and I say you want to translate the same setup to another chart. What you can do is real simple. You can click on that icon and say, hey, show me what's going on with the same setup just on the Australian dollar. What's it going to do? Predictably, is it going to think for a while, download some data, and here we have it. Same setup, price, stochastic, MACD, just on the different asset. You want to jump to another still, Canadian dollar, really simple to do. Wait for it to load. Can take a couple of seconds, can be a bit slower, can be a bit faster. All depends on your internet connection and how fast your phone is, obviously. And here we have it. Canadian dollar, pure price, price action, stochastic, MACD, no other stuff. Now, the next button would be only convenient if actually we get rid of some indicators that we've put forward for it. So once again, to add some indicators, click on that F button. And always use that icon you see on the main chart, unless you have a very good reason not to, and add the indicators that you want. You got the usual Bill Williams one, you get the indicators based on volumes, oscillators, usual ones, all the trendy ones, and etc. etc. If you want to get rid of some of the stuff that you've added to the chart, just click on that bin icon, select the stuff that you want, or you can select everything using this convenient button over here, select and deselect, and click on that bin icon once again. Here we have it. The chart is pure as it can be. Now, the fourth button. This one actually allows you to control both the screen. So in terms of the charts that you have, you can actually have up to 2 of them in this kind of particular kind of layout. And let's do just that. Let's say that you want a new window. Here we have it. And it allows you, if you click on it once again, to tile it either horizontally or vertically. Now, if with this kind of setup, and if you're just looking at your charts vertically and you try to tile it vertically, I mean, yeah, you can do it, but it's probably a bad idea. So let's revert that back, tile horizontally once again. And here you can have up to 2 charts, obviously, with each and every one of them as configurable as it can be. So in our particular case, and we're going to go through this wheel just a second, bear with me. So for example, we've selected US dollar versus Canadian dollar forward contract for one, and let's say in the next one we actually want to switch to another chart. So we do real simple. We focus it. You can see this blue rectangle that appears on every chart that is in focus as of now, and we can change it, for example, from Apple to, let's go for Australian dollar. So as you can see, it updated only the chart below, not the whole thing. Also quite useful, especially if you're a scalper, if you're taking into consideration more than one asset at a time, if you really want to understand what is the movement of one currency pair in comparison to the other one. I mean, realistically for that one you need to track some convergences, divergences, you need to see just how correspondent the movement is. There are a whole bunch of other tools you could use for that, but if you want to see 2 instruments at once, if you want to be able to follow 2 charts at once, not just one, and also if you just like the layout, because let's be honest, if we select this one, if we get rid of it, if you just look at this particular chart, I mean, to say that it's quite comfortable to look at, especially if you are used to the actual PC version, is, well, like, it would be a lie, let's be honest. So, if you prefer to keep things a bit more fancy, beautiful, and also a bit more comfortable to look at, especially if you've gotten used to the usual PC version by now, You can also edit and simply you get what I'm saying. Anyhow, now for this actual wheel, once again here it's everything as simple as it can be. You can select the time frame. So here we have US dollar versus Canadian dollar with minutes. You can change that to 15 minutes. See what's going on over there. You can change that. Actually, I think I've selected 30 minutes by chance. So 15 minutes over there. We can go to hourly chart. H1 stands for hours. D1, which will stand for daily. Wait for it to load. And wait for it to load some more. And here we have it. Now, the weeks and the months, you can use it. Once again, if you consider some long-term investment, especially for stocks, that's something you definitely need to pay more attention to. If you're trading mostly Forex, well, days, weeks, could be, but once again, depends on your kind of system. And to keep things, well, I guess, in the same line, same style, let's configure this chart just a little bit as well. To configure this one, what you can do is you can you can click on this small gear in the bottom left part of the wheel. Let me see if I managed to press it right. Nope. And sometimes it can be, here we go. Now this one is actually going to allow you to configure the chart even more. First of all, you can change the type of the chart that you're looking for. For example, you can go for bars instead of the usual candles, if for some reason you prefer them. You can go with the line, although why? Why would you have so little information? But it's totally up to you. You can choose to see the OHLC prices, so what they can do. Probably didn't notice, but just below the Apple Inc. M5, so we're looking at the Apple stock in the time frame of 5 minutes, you have all this bunch of numbers. These numbers represent respectively the open, the high, the low, and the close of the price at which you're looking for. Once again, if you're into scalping, if you need that data for any reason, then by all means add it to the chart and keep track of it. Otherwise, don't add data you don't need. You don't want to make yourself more confused. Just because you can. So I see that just disappeared, and let's go back real quick. Show data window. This is one is going to display a pop-up window near the crosshair. So it's better to make it visual. Let's say we've selected our chart. Let's say we want this one, and here we have it. This one is going to display some additional data. In this particular case, going to tell you what the spread is. In other case, might tell you some other stuff. Once again, as you might have seen, we actually can have two separate charts, and this one are going to be completely independent from each other. So just because you're looking at the crosshair in this chart doesn't mean that it's somehow connected to the next one. So in this case, let's disable that one, and let's go back to the configuration panel. I don't want the data window. I don't want things pop up, or at least expect them to. Now we can show, for example, the tick volumes or the real volumes. So if you're looking at Apple, of course you want to see the real volumes, possibly. Also, if you're going to look at those ones, I'd highly recommend you to add another indicator where you can actually configure that kind of chart. As you can see, it's displaying us the volumes, but it's displaying them in really thin kind of line that is barely visible. So not something I could recommend, unless you prefer to keep things so simple you can barely see them. That's also an option. That's not my style. So I'd tell it not to show any kind of volumes. And then you can configure, first of all, whether you want to see the trade levels. So whether you want to see the price at which you've opened your position, which you want to see the stop losses, take profits, pending orders, and everything else. I prefer to keep them unless I have a good reason not to. Sometimes that happens as well. After you had, for example, a series of trades that went in positive or a series of trades that went in negative, and to keep your mind perfectly clear, sometimes it's worth it to disable those trade levels in order for you to focus only on what the price is doing and not what kind of positions you have. So for the part, I'm keeping that one. Independent charts here is enabled by default. This is what allows graphical objects created only a current symbol, selecting timeframes, not to be affected by the other one. For the most part, it's quite useful. If you have a good reason not to use that, just select it and see what's going on. Now you can see some period separators, which is going to draw additional vertical lines in the chart to correspond with the larger period timeframe borders. So once again, very simple, real intuitive. So what it's going to do is effectively just draw these kind of lines every now and then. So once again, going to depend on you, whether it's something you enjoy having on the chart, whether it's some kind of information you need, or whether it's just some noise that you really couldn't be bothered about. So I, for the most part, prefer to keep it real simple, so without those ones. Ask price line and the last price line. This once again is going to depend on your strategy, how much information you effectively need. If you're not a scalper, if you're not trading on lower time frames, you probably don't need to consider the spread of the asset which you're trading, as it's not going to be that crucial to your position. If on the other hand you're trading extremely low time frames, you might be even competing with HFTs. But it means, yeah, you do need to pay attention to the spread, because that one can really eat into what you're doing in terms of your profits. So given the time, considering the lower time frames for now, effectively I'm going to keep it over there. But if I were to consider some daily charts on anything else, just not to keep it too complicated, I would disable it and just go with the usual one. Now, last price line, this one is obviously going to be available only for stocks, because this is where it's present. Once again, you can directly to that one. By the way, if you're considering stocks, you probably want to enable only the last price line, because it's going to make things much simpler. Otherwise, if you're mostly currency trader, then go for the bid and ask. If you're a scalper, if not, just go for the bid. That's the usual way it goes. And lastly, the colors. This one, once again, pretty simple, pretty intuitive. By default, it will put any kind of new chart over there with a black and white scheme. If you're into old school trading, if you've been studying all the Bibles of technical analysis, well, you might have noticed that they usually paint everything with black and white candles. However, currently it's a bit more modern and stylish, as they say, to go with the color on white. So if you go down over here, go back to the chart, here you can see effectively your chart with the colors that are just as same as the chart above. Now, one last thing, to zoom in and zoom out of whatever chart you're currently working with, what you've got to do, you can't really see me do it, but what you do is effectively you pretend that the chart is an image that you can zoom in and out of. So if you ever taken some photo with some good quality camera and you've noticed that there's something going on that photo you want to see, you put your two fingers in the middle of the photo, then you just either move them away from each other or you move them closer to each other. So if you move them closer to each other, you're going to zoom out of the chart. If you're moving them away from each other, you're going to be zooming in. Real simple. Once again, try it out for yourself. In this particular case, I just want to make these charts of mine simply similar as they can be. And here we have it. Press it for too long, this particular window will open, which will allow you also to close the chart that you don't need. I'm going to add it back once again, go through the color preferences real quick, zoom just a bit. Here we have it, and yeah, here we go. We've went through the charts, we've seen how we can configure them effectively, how we can add additional instruments, how we can add some indicators, whether it would be just a simple moving averages, or it would be something more complicated perhaps, like Ishimoku if you're using that one. That's also perfectly available, as it is on all the MetaTrader terminals. So if you got any questions, send us an email, give us a call, send us a message in chat, we'll be glad to help you. Got some comments, additional thing for us to work on, to think on, to improve on for the next videos, leave us a comment below. Always happy to read your feedback. We're here for you afterwards, after all. pardon me. And that's effectively it. The next video we might take a look at the horizontal layout, because the things get a bit different when you turn the screen to the side. However, mostly it's actually quite intuitive. It's basically the same. So we'll see if that makes sense. Perhaps if some of you will ask us, if perhaps some of you will tell us in the comments whether it's something worth doing or not, and we'll take it from there. So now that we've covered the charts, it would be nice to see what kind of orders can we open. By the way, that last button allows us to do just that. But that will be a topic for another time. Thanks so much for watching, and